I'm William Shatner. I've done a lot of things in my career, but this takes the cake. This is so cool. You, Joseph, today, it's all about you. You won the internet. Congratulations. It's exciting. It makes me want to celebrate. Makes me want to get up out of this chair. Makes me want to sing. Makes me want to dance. Makes me want to shout. Kick my heels up. Throw my hands up. Toss my head back. No, really, people should be shouting your name in the street.
Come on now. Sing that name.
Sing that song.
Joseph,
Sing it out loud.
Joseph.
I want to celebrate. Put it up in lights.
The internet belongs to you.
See, no one else deserves to be celebrated like you because you are the best.
Joseph Jaffe is not famous. Me, Tom Arnold, I am very famous. I absolutely because it's very true. Like, I hadn't freaking heard of you until I was sitting on a Friday night. This is how bad my life is. Listen, fucker, good luck. Good luck with your rebranding. Like anybody knew what the name was before. What was the name? Okay, who gives a shit? That's a good name because it's got your name in it. You can pretend you're humble. You say, I'm not famous. And, which you aren't. So you're just, anyway, but I hope you get famous doing this. Good luck to you.
There was one guy I was dealing with getting a little bit pissy over the kid interrupting the call thing, and I'm like, appreciate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please. Yeah.
My bad. Please continue. It's very alliterative.
They are going to be the ones powering the experiences that every customer has.
Preference has power. I'm pretty sure Cato would say to me when I do every show, stop.
I think he would.
Those pieces are popping. Wait till you get the invoice.
Here. I have a question. When's the last time you danced? When's the last time you laughed?
Now. I don't want to dance with you.
When's the last time you flew a kite?
Toasted Oreo.
Look at you. You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're insane. You're insane.
Look, I do not know this for a fact that Krista Neher is from Ireland, but let's just assume that she is, because I know there's a little bit of Canadian, there's a little bit of Floridian, there is a little bit of Lithuanian, just because that's where my people come from. She was in the Netherlands. Sometimes she even likes barbecue in Austin at South by Southwest, but it's been a long time coming, and Krista wants you to join us today, at Bootcamp Digital or just on Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous, as we reminisce and talk about maybe not the old country, but maybe old digital marketing and what new digital marketing looks like, and if we've learned everything that we need to learn, or if we still have one or two things to learn, whether it's digital, whether it's social, whether it's mobile, whether it's Web3. Hopefully we are always learning, because if we are not learning, we are stagnating, and if we are stagnating, we are dying. It's just as simple as that. Don't mean to, be as dark and macabre, but listen, if that's what it takes to get you off your ass, get you off your seats, and enroll into this idea of saying this dynamic, incredible world that we're living in, digital marketing in general, it is as static and it is as boring as we want it to be, or it is as exciting as we want it to be. Just looking over my shoulder, the little pets.com mascot, one of the advantages of now moving back into the global headquarters of Joseph Jaffe's Not Famous is digging out all of the little tchotchkes and knickknacks. And, from time to time, if you notice something and you want me to point it out, you can go ahead and just put in the comments, and I'll be glad to tell you the story, because there is always a story about everything, right? Everything is a story. We are all storytellers at the end of the day. But let's get on with the show. Many of you know that I have launched a project called Alpha Collective. You can go to alphacollective.xyz to purchase a digital membership pass to an always on mastermind meets community meets conference where we help both corporates and crypto natives, creators and degens partner and win at the business of Web3. But wait, there's more. There's more. Our goal is actually not to step on toes, to duplicate efforts. Our goal, and I believe it is our goal, as in your goal, as in my goal, our goal, it's so reminiscent. I've been through this. I call it Groundhog Day in the metaverse, right, Krista? We've been through this so many times. We see the same brands, the same people making the same mistakes over and over again. Why don't they learn? When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? So my goal, my mission is to help onboard the next billion wallets, because truly it will be the crypto wallet that unifies the customer ID, that propels us to achieve all of our loyalty, advocacy, and raving fan dreams. So join in the mission. And here's the thing. You can actually get an entry-level digital membership pass for free, I tells you. All you got to do is go to freemint.alphacollective.xyz and you can get access to 52 Alpha Talk speakers, delivering 52 Alpha Talks in 52 weeks. Never in the history of the world have we seen 52 keynote speakers with a total speaker revenue of or speaker fees of over $1 million delivered for free. There is no catch, which probably makes you think there is a catch, but there is no catch. So tell everyone about it. Krista, tell everyone about it. freemint.alphacollective.xyz, and you can get in. Now, something else we're doing, which I just love, is the Collective Cafe, Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We just get together and we have coffee. This is free. It's free for everyone. All you have to do is join the Discord, discord.gg/Alpha Collective, and you can be part of our Collective Cafe. We are doing some amazing things. But today we had an amazing person. We had Kevin O'Brien, who works at St. Jude's Children's Hospital, Children's Research Hospital. And he just told the story of his beautiful, beautiful daughter, 7-year-old daughter, who unfortunately did not see her 8th birthday. But he spoke about his forever changed story. He spoke about the work that they were doing there. And I actually asked him to write the foreword of my new book, Forever Changed. I met him at a conference. I was the opening keynote. He was the closing keynote. And immediately I just said to him, Kevin, please do me the honor of writing the foreword. He was in our Collective Cafe this morning, and he told his story. And it was just absolutely, absolutely, heartbreaking and also heartwarming to hear his story. Jensu is here. She said, love spending time in the Collective Cafe. We love having you there as well. And another thing I love doing is giving away a little bit of Jaffe coin, a little bit of cryptocurrency. So there is the QR code. It's sitting on the shelf right now. Look at it. It's sitting neatly on the shelf. Flash your phone on that QR code. Get yourself a little bit of crypto. It is my way of just saying thank you so much for tuning in today and watching live. You see, the magic of that QR code is that it is only live while the show is live. I love that little bit of hijinks, that little bit of Irish leprechaunian hijinks. But now it is time to move on with the show, and specifically the seated soliloquy, which of course is dedicated, inspired by my very special guest today, is called Always Learning. Now, look, I teach. I always wanted to teach. I've always been teaching. Whether I was giving a keynote or a seminar or workshop or sitting on a panel, my goal was always to help people, to inspire people, to, for me, to this day, when someone comes up to me and says they changed their career because of something I said or because of a moment that we had together, it freaks me out because I hope they made the right decision. But generally, what an amazing, amazing opportunity to be able to direct someone or inspire them. As I said, inspire them, not push them, but pull them perhaps into and towards their purpose or their light. So I've been a teacher, but then I learned when I did the certification program, I don't know if you can see it, but maybe if I go full screen, you might be able to see it. No, you can't see it because it's up one level, but my certification from an AACSB program called the Bridge program, where I essentially learned it was focused on how corporates, how executives could make the transition, the bridge over to teaching. But there was something in that week-long course that stuck with me. The best teachers are students, and the best students are teachers. And that is essentially my North Star. That governs me, which is this idea that a teacher that believes they've learned it all, that they have nothing left to learn, they're not a very good teacher. They'll never be a very good teacher because they will never learn. They will never continue to learn. They will never broaden their horizons. They will never learn from their students or their interactions with the students, because it's always going to be one directional. I am the oracle. I am the all-powerful. I am the all-knowing. And you are blessed enough, fortunate enough for me to spew all of my wisdom, open up wide and let me pour into you. That is not what teaching is about. That's not what digital marketing is about. That is not what this is about. What this is about is recognizing that we will continue to be inspired by and learn and broaden our horizons and rethink and unlearn and maybe even move into a different direction if we are open-minded and if we are active listeners and if we are willing and open to being able to learn. And so now it is time to bring on the master teacher and probably master student, because I'm sure she is still learning, Krista Neher. Now, Krista did not send me a bio. She's been very bad. She did not send me a bio. So I had to go and hunt around, but fortunately I found this.
To talk about LinkedIn because I think it's one of the most powerful social networks out there. And while a lot of people are on LinkedIn, very few people are using LinkedIn to get real value from it. A lot of the times we think marketing is only something that's done for product and brands, but we're all marketing ourselves as well. And LinkedIn is an extraordinarily powerful tool for this. Universal rule of business. We do business with people and things we know, like, and trust. This is true whether it's the kind of laundry detergent that you buy when you're going to check out. I used to work at Procter & Gamble. That's the whole premise of advertising, right? If you've seen a bunch of Tide commercials, you're more likely to pick it when you're at a checkout line or when you're in the laundry aisle. The exciting thing for me is when I get to work with a client, I love being able to customize a presentation to make sure it really meets their needs. This means making it interactive, researching the industry, customizing examples. I don't do canned presentations because I want to make sure that the audience gets the most out of my presentation possible.
Well, that's, no more canned presentations then. I see the Red Cross logo behind you, by the way. Last night I taught my brand strategy class and I spoke to them about that Red Cross and that you don't even need writing. You know what it is, you know what it represents, but there was so much stuff in there. I'm like, help me, Krista, teach me how to be a better LinkedIn marketer. Teach me, how do I build a personal brand? How do I make Joseph Jaffe famous? How do I do that? Welcome to the show. You don't have to answer any of those questions. I'm just
well, thank you for having me.
It's been a while.
It has for sure. I think we all spent a couple years hibernating, right?
We were in South by Southwest 2019, and then the world went insanely crazy, did it not?
It sure did. Yeah.
And so I went back. I went back in 2022. And I think it was, yeah, this year. And I absolutely loved it. I started off a little cautious. The mask, when I was in the W hotel, I was, I was staying at the W. Everything was so expensive because I, as always, decided a little bit too late. And so I ended up using my own points, and I'm at the W and I'm being very cautious and I'm using my mask. And then I was like, what, screw it at some point. And I just, no masks. And I had the time of my life, and I did not contract anything.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think overall business travel is only at like 40% of previous years. And a lot of conferences are doing 30-40% of attendance of what they used to do, which honestly, for something like South by is not the worst thing. Like the idea of it being a little smaller actually sounds way more appealing to me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it might have been smaller, but there was a line that went like thrice round the block for Lizzo. And I'm not gonna lie. I tried to cut the line several times until eventually I succeeded. I mean, listen, we're going to Yom Kippur tonight, so I can ask for forgiveness for my sins for sneaking in. I didn't do the chat and cut, which of course Larry David taught us. I did the old, yeah, I'm just coming back. I went to the restroom. You remember me, right? And they were like, you don't really have a very memorable face, but sure, go on in. So
that's where your like persona works for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I ended up almost twerking with Lizzo, so it was really time well spent.
There you go.
But you know me in South by Southwest. I go with the flow because my name is Joe. Now, Krista, one of the things that I've realized on the show is when I have an OG, sometimes it can get a little too esoteric. And so I'm going to try and fight the urge for it to be too esoteric. But at the same time, it is a nice opportunity to catch up and hopefully people can feel, the familiarity, the solidarity, the camaraderie of people that have been in the industry, that have been fighting the good fight. And I mean, both of us have really been educators. You a little more formally, me a little bit less so, but trying to, win over the ignorant, if you will. How are we doing? Are we succeeding, or we still have a long way to go?
I mean, it depends. I think education is still in a really like we do our own trainings. I work with companies, we have public training. I've partnered with some of the certification programs from like Kellogg and Columbia and stuff like that. So I have a good pulse on everything. And what I would say is the biggest challenge I still see is, the formal education that people are getting just doesn't cut it still when it comes to digital. I mean, I wrote the first textbook on social media. Believe it or not, I still get royalty checks from it. And it was written like many, many years ago. But if you think about that type of education, it's a little bit theoretical. There's not a lot of hands-on to it. And it's often taught by people who've never done this stuff. And I do think when it comes to digital, a lot of it comes down to that sort of perspective and experience that you get that somebody teaching it just off of a textbook doesn't get. Like I'll work with somebody who maybe went to college and they'll say something like, well, I heard you should never delete a comment. I'm like, well, it's not black and white. You're running an ad with negative comments all over it. I don't know. I'd delete those. So I think what you see is, post-secondary, I don't think is there yet. And we have this glut of online courses where the ideas and quality levels are all over the place. And I would say when I work with businesses of all shapes and sizes, more and more of my energy goes toward unteaching them. It's not always untrue things that they've heard, but it's not the right perspective. Somebody will say, hey, I heard I need to do X, Y, and Z for SEO. And I'm like, look, that's like 0.0001% of your success. It's not what actually matters. And that's the perspective that's missing from a lot of this stuff. So, I think we've done a lot in terms of people understanding some of the foundations better, but I still think there's a lot to be done to helping businesses to really use these tools well and make the most out of them.
I really like this concept of unteaching. And, one of the things I'm doing, even with my course, it's 2.5 hours. I don't know how I sit through it, never mind them. But I hope they're not watching right now. But they're great students. But now for the first hour of the class, I don't even get into the lesson anymore. We're focusing on what's going on in the news, and discussing whether it's Trevor Noah leaving the Daily Show, or the NyQuil chicken challenge, or or even the brand of the Royals. And and for me, like, all I try and do with my students, and this is post-grad because it's NYU's School of Professional Studies, I keep saying to them, this is alive. This is alive. This is happening right now. The textbook is actually being written right now. And all you have to do is log on to Twitter for the most part, and you will experience this for yourself. And you can even shape it too. And so I'm at first it was 10 minutes, and then 50, and then 20. And now I'll look at my watch and I'll be like, it's an hour into the lecture and we haven't even started. Or maybe we have.
Well, I mean, what you're really touching on in this is that, look, if it was as simple as here's a set of rules, execute against them by robots. The key is critical thinking. It's creativity. It's taking what you know about topic A, what you know about the Royals, and how does that apply to personal branding is through and exercising your brain muscles. And I think what I see is so many people just want a quick answer, the playbook, the rule of thumb, right? So like my joke always is like, we're focused on the diet pills of things because it's easy to take a diet pill, right? I can easily put something in my mouth every day. It's way harder to actually exercise and eat properly day in, day out. But it's the same with marketers, right? How many times do I answer the stupid question of when you should post on social media? That's the diet pill of your success. Your real success is posting relevant things people care about. That also not a single formula. You need some creativity, you need strategic thinking. And that's hard for people. They really do prefer. And I think that's also why there's so much noise in the space, because you see all these people selling, 10 ways to triple your Instagram account. Look, if it was that easy, that person would be sitting on the beach, right? And I think we all kind of like the idea of these diet pills. We all like the idea, well, if I just post at 2 p.m. every day, I'm going to be successful. But really, those aren't the things that matter. So I think there's what you're talking about is really exercising that muscle around the things that matter most to your success.
You've got all the one-liners today. I love it. The diet pills of success and the diet pills of marketing. And it's true. And by the way, the people that are on the beach, that are enjoying the pina colada, are the people that are selling you on the 10 ways to get rich and and I can help you grow your Instagram account and get more followers. And I mean, when you think about it, when you slow down, it's fairly obvious, which is, there is no such thing as a free lunch. You get what you pay for. Even the free mint, for example, with respect to Alpha Collective, I think about it, you are going to get what you pay for, which is you're going to get an entry-level solution. Now, I know how to surprise and delight because I am a strategic marketer. And the goal isn't to cross-sell or upsell at all. In fact, the goal there is to broaden access to people that might not be able to afford it. But at the same time, the goal is also to shed light on a premium solution. So there are exceptions to the norm, but for the most part, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, for sure. You get what you pay for. And you also get out what you put in, right? Like, so if it was easy to get results, everyone would just be successful and they wouldn't be working anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like you see that now with TikTok is everyone thinks, well, I'm just going to launch a channel and get 1 million views. None of these things are that easy, truly. And when I look at most TikTok influencers, not all, but many, they had $1 million video and that's it. They can't replicate it, let alone teach someone else how to do this stuff in a repeatable way. So I definitely think this stuff is not as easy as a lot of people like to make it seem to be. But also, I think part of the impetus is on marketers and business executives to have that framework and not get sold into the easy solutions. Because I'll tell you, I work with clients all the time who would much rather be sold, here's the playbook and just repeat it and everyone will be successful and you'll be done. They like that. They love that stuff. So I think we all have to be a little bit, critical thinking and disconcerting in order to actually buy into the things that get us the results.
Yeah, instant virality, just add brand. Bez is here and he said, agree with you. Get what you put into it. Hard work and consistency still matters. Indeed it does. It is this instant gratification that happens so much. And, it makes so much sense to just slow down and recognize that we are building something substantial. We are building trust. We are building rapport. We're building all of these things, and yet everybody wants the quick fix. I coined a term this morning in our coffee called the accidental creator, and it's exactly the point you just made, which is the real successful creators out there, the ones that have 100,000, 1 million, those are people that almost fell into it by accident. It wasn't actually, there are very few cases, I stand corrected, but it's people, I've been slaving at this for 2.5 years, deliberately, formally, strategically, systematically, etc. And it is a slog and it is a grind. But then yesterday I had Gilly, the sunshine wizard, and he was just out there putting a little bit of sunshine into the world. And the next thing, one of his videos went viral, and he was smart enough and able to turn that into a business. And that's the other part as well. Right. It is those one-trick ponies that don't have the ability to turn it into a business that end up being nothing more than a beautiful firework display.
Well, it's the preparedness meeting the opportunity, right? And I think a lot of the times in all opportunities, not just to go viral, but it's that combination of you get that little foot in the door and how do you crank it all the way open, and that's what success is. But again, I still feel like so many of us focus on the wrong thing. For example, I bet you've been asked 100 times, what kind of camera do you use? What's your lighting setup? What does that little switcher thing on the side do? I was going to ask you about it, but everyone's going to ask you these things. How many people ask you, how do you make it interesting? How do you not bore people to death? That's all. That's what matters. You could have a crappy camera. If you're saying really interesting things, you're fine.
Yeah, I swear a lot. Like I say, I do that, and I have my own little censoring option as well. And most of the time, for the most part, I tell jokes, and nobody laughs as well. But that's also part of my brand. A little bit corny, right. A little bit. Even remember the golden olden days of Jaffe Juice. My podcast. It was meant to be. I leaned into the bad radio or radio of old with the little jingles. Etc. By the way, Glenn said, I love your education model. Free. I learn something every time I listen. Well, that sucks for me, Glenn. Buy a pass to Alpha. No. I don't even think of this as education. But if it is education, I am being educated as well. And that's the thing. It's one of the things I do is I take notes. And so I'm already taking notes. And I'm learning, for example, I can, the diet pills of marketing, 21 minutes, timestamp it as well. So, you thought I was doing this out of the goodness of my heart, Krista and Glenn, but I am like a parasite. I'm like a leech, just extracting all the goodness out of you. It's quite mean of me as well. Well, thank God I knew exactly which one to press. But anyway, I digress. What were we talking about, Krista?
I don't know. We're ranting and complaining.
Yes, I know. We were talking about fun facts, all the things you wanted to know about Krista Neher, but were too afraid to ask. For example, did you know that the very first time that she was in an airplane, she jumped out of it as well? I love the fact, by the way, in this actual photograph from your very first jump, you're not even wearing a helmet. Amazing.
Yeah.
Tell us, that's kind of crazy that the first time you were ever in a plane, you jumped out of it.
Yeah.
How do you Tuesday that one?
I don't know. Apparently, I'm like very adventurous. I never really thought of myself that way until I actually think of things that I do. But yeah, when I was in college, I went skydiving and I had actually never even been on a plane before. I think the first time I flew somewhere, I did a term abroad and I was like 22 or something.
And so how did that, so now when you're like on that, you know, A380 or 747, you know, you're like already like kind of touching the door and they're like back away from the door.
There you go. Yep. No, I've been skydiving 3 or 4 times. It's super fun. I feel like everyone needs to do stuff like that. You know, it's not actually that expensive. And the adrenaline rush is just, you know, amazing, right? And it's like relatively safe at the end of the day.
I really, really want to do it. And, you know, I'm afraid, but I really, really want to do it. So at some point, I'm just going to go for it and relatively safe.
Relative.
Define relatively.
Safer than driving.
Yeah.
Probably safer than riding a bike anywhere these days. Holy cow! So yeah, relatively safe, I think.
All right, I'm going with relatively. Bess says, "LOL, no, you're not a leech. You're not famous yet." So that's like a double negative. So I'm not even sure, or sort of. He says, "You're a 5-time author. That counts for something." I don't know. Does being an author? You're a 5-time author, Krista. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it just means you have a lot to say.
Yeah.
What matters is if people listen or do anything with your ideas, right? I think
I can only hope. I can only hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about your books later. We've got lots of, as I said, lots of surprises here on the show, but we'll get to your books shortly. But everyone wants to know more things about you. For example, we learned, did you notice that you are now basically, you are now Jesus? So there you go. That your son has visited 20 or had visited 25 countries by the time he was 5.
Yeah.
No doubt you love to travel, but how many countries has he visited now? And how many countries have you visited now?
You know, I have no idea. I've never counted. He's only years of COVID. So I don't know what his number is at. He's probably around 30. But you know, to me, I think it's so nice to be able to just get out and experience different cultures and get out of your own head and your own ways of doing things. And so, you know, living in Europe, it's easy to visit a lot of countries, right? If you look at the size of the US, there's like, you know, 15 European countries in there. So in fairness, I probably had an easier go of it. But I love traveling. And, you know, people think when you have kids, you can't travel or whatever. And different things work for different people. But I will say I've not slowed my roll yet.
Well, Glenn is just showing off now because he said he's been to 117. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean that is insane.
How many countries are there? I need to Google it.
Well, I know that I did a project for Coca-Cola years ago called Expedition 206. Was it 204 or 206? It was one or the other. And the number represented the number of countries that Coca-Cola was in and had a presence in. And there were like a number of the ones, like I think North Korea. There were a few obvious countries that Coke did not have a presence in, but for the most part, it is the most widely distributed and ubiquitous brand in the world. So, Glenn, you've got about 100 more to go, I think. So, get busy. Get busy, damn it.
It's all about positioning. So like 117 sounds impressive when you're like, he's been to about half. No, it doesn't sound so good.
Yeah, exactly.
You always have to choose your metrics wisely.
Exactly, Glenn. That's, I've been to 100% of the countries that I've been to. So there you go. So the final little bit of information about you, we just, we go from this. I had to find something with clogs. There apparently are not many photos of, a Dutch woman in clog. I don't even know what I was searching for, but you just got back from, and this is me showing my, my US-centric approach, which is all Dutch people, wear clogs and windmills and tulips, which of course is not true at all. But you just got back from living in Amsterdam for 5 years. And, as we talk about your world travel, I wanted to actually kind of segue into when we talk about digital marketing and the evolution of, there's brand USA, you were out of the US, you're Canadian originally. How have you seen the way the world has evolved, the way the perception of the US has evolved. Even the standard of digital marketing and marketers, what is being away from this epicenter of, Palo Alto or New York or whatever, what has that taught you, and how have you benefited as a marketer and as an educator from being out the country?
Yeah, so I think like even globally though, the Palo Alto, New York, these sort of hot buttons, they still have the sex appeal anywhere, right? I mean, if you say, hey, I'm working at Google in California, that's always sexy and people are always interested in that. But I feel like when you look at a lot of countries that are maybe, you look within Europe, for example, they're not innovative, or you look in Asia where you don't necessarily even have mass adoption of a lot of these tools, what you see is the hype wears off and we get down to reality a lot more. So here I feel like, to me, sometimes it's exhausting. So you spend a lot of energy of chasing shiny objects, working with clients, really a good fit for them, what has business value, what doesn't. I think when you leave this area, you have a little bit more pragmatic approaches because they're not always the first to get all the new tools and technology. So I feel like in other regions, you have a little bit more of a pragmatic approach. And especially when you look in Asia, it's largely innovative in almost everything. If you look at WeChat, it's a million years ahead of anything that's gone on here in terms of digital commerce and all that stuff. But at the same time, you have just a more measured approach than what I think you sometimes see here, where everyone's jumping into everything just to do it, right? To win a prize or something.
Yeah, by the way, I mean, good old Martin Albarda is watching, and he said, I feel culturally minimized, insulted, degraded. I mean, Martin, I will make it up to you, Martin, by going, look up there, look up there. I forgot that I'm not like inverse now. Look at Zero paid media is the new marketing model, co-authored by Martin Albarda and Joseph Jaffe. There it is. I was just demonstrating my, ignorant South African US approach. Forgive me, Martin. But yeah, I loved some of the insights that you shared there, Krista, because it is so true. I've spoken more in Belgium and actually and then secondarily in Netherlands than in any country in the world. And the quality and the standard of marketers and executives there, and certainly a lot of companies are based there, as well. And it's always an interesting thing because, you go to Belgium and, for example, your speaker fee will be increased because it's an international trip, but it's such a small market. And so by definition, they can't afford as much. And it's like a bit of a weird, imbalance as well. And yet the quality of the digital marketer in Europe is certainly per capita is vastly superior, certainly differentiated, if not superior. And so it's kind of like an interesting paradox or contradiction. And that's what I've learned in terms of getting out of the bubble and sitting down and, and I'll say one more thing, which is like so many times I've gone and I've given a presentation and I realize that all my examples are US examples and that doesn't cut it. That doesn't fly either.
But that's true everywhere. I mean, because honestly, like English examples are most universal and there's only so many English markets. So I would say everyone has that problem when they're appealing to global audiences. But, what I always think of is, when I look at the pitches I do for speaking here, a lot of it is people want trends and tools. And again, to me, this is like the diet pill. Look, your website sucks. You don't have good follow-up. You're not optimized for search engines. And you want to talk to me about trends? Like, no, do the stuff that we know works really well first, right? And I feel like I get a lot of requests here for these like hot button topics, which I'm happy to speak about. But that's what people really want. Whereas when I look at a lot of the requests that I do overseas, it's just a much more pragmatic approach to the audience. And they'll ask things like, what can we expect someone to do after your session? How can they implement these ideas on the job? And it's not to say no one in the US asks these questions. Of course, some of them do. But there's just overall, if you do a survey of 100 people asking them what topics they want to hear about, I certainly feel like Americans have a little bit more of just the drive for these sexy, shiny things, whereas they'll more so in other places because they'll ask, well, if we're going to talk about this, what would anyone do with it? And so I think it's kind of interesting to see.
I mean, it's coming back to, I would always say in my presentations, before you ask me the question, let me preempt it. The question, of course, is what's the next big thing? And my answer is there is no next big thing, you moron. The next big thing is now. But then it goes back to Martin, if he's still watching, will probably fondly remember and smile when we did work together at AB InBev, and we would go on a little tour to Google, and Avinash Koshek would basically stand up and literally, what they call it, tear AB InBev's and various brands' websites apart. What do they call it? Rip them a new arsehole or something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, censors. You got to be quicker. You got to be quicker. And they would love it. They were like eating it up, and they didn't realize, like, you're being insulted right now. You're being actually destroyed and taken apart. And they thought it was like a comedy show. I never actually got to ask whether they actually fixed their website after that moment.
Probably not. I mean, I think part of the challenge you have with digital is like the traditional whole way that people work and agency models just don't work as well, right? So that's why, agile is becoming hot, but most companies can't really implement it properly still. But if you look at it, the way that a company launches a website is they decide they need a new website, they have a project, and the project launches, and then everyone is done. Right? Then you have the next project. And there's not this like always optimizing mindset, because marketing is based on campaigns that launch and finish. And the other thing we see is a lack of data. I worked with a very large global brand, household name, recently, relaunching a website for one of their brands. And I'm like, well, they were debating something. And I said, well, what is the traffic to that page in the current site and where does it come from? They're halfway through relaunching a website. Not a single person ever looked at the analytics from their current site. This is easily accessible data that could drive a smarter decision. And yet they'll want to talk about attribution and big data and all these hot, sexy ideas when they don't use the data in front of them for just everyday decisions. So I think a lot of things about the way traditional companies are used to working with both their agencies and internal just doesn't work with digital. And that's why they're not making these changes. There's not an active website project. There's not a budget to just continuously change the website, right? That's not how they work at all. So I think a lot of things need to shift for businesses to do a better job in this space, especially big brands.
I really love this, where we're heading. And, I always look for a quote for my guests. And this is the quote that I found. Tom Morris, who's our resident philosopher, would be very proud that I picked Epictetus. But Epictetus said, and I did a little asterisk because I think in his day, he wasn't quite on the gender equality bandwagon. But he said, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows.
Yeah.
And I've always said the most dangerous client out there, or the most dangerous politician or anyone, is someone who thinks they know what they don't know. So let's talk a little bit about two things. One, and I'll ask two questions, and you can answer them in any order you choose. Number one, which is, if you could wave a magic wand and create the perfect structure between brand, marketer, agency, publisher, whatever, the perfect way to work, what would that be? And the second question is, why do we continue to make the same why do smart people make dumb decisions? And why do we continue to make the same dumb decisions? Case in point, your website sucks.
Yeah. So I'll answer your second question first. What I believe is it's so ingrained to how these companies operate. It's so difficult for them to change. So I worked with a $1 billion global, multi-billion dollar global brand, and as a part of a digital transformation project. And the whole thing is, I mean, they've started building their next campaign right as their first campaign is airing, right? Their whole business operating system and reward structure is based on these 18-month planning cycles. So it's not just about market. The global business team comes up with a strategy and deploys it to the markets. Then the markets have 6 months to customize it. And none of this is based on data, by the way. And this is again and again, especially with big global companies, you see it. But it's so systemic to every part of how they operate. It's very challenging to break the cycle because every part is feeding into this, from having global operating units that don't get any data or feedback, to the amount of time it takes to deploy something, to the relationships with the creative agencies, right? More and more you see brands asking for flexible assets. So instead of saying, hey, shoot this commercial, and then I want assets that I could reuse into TikToks or this or that. So they're getting a little bit better, but it's just so built into how they do things. And once the budget is spent, no one wants to change anything. So I think that's the root of the problem. In terms of how you fix it, I think if you look at digital native companies, they just inherently do it right. You know, they have, first of all, they have more in-house executional teams. And it's not to say that there's not a role for agencies, but whenever you have that agency relationship, it slows you down. There's just no two ways about it. A big part of the challenge is that most agencies don't do both buying and creative. So nobody bridges those gaps. And then where does data fit into that, right? So when you look at digital natives, look at bookings.com, look at Uber, look at these big, really e-commerce centric businesses, they have creative agencies for ideas and whatnot, but the nitty gritty is built into their way of operating. Their website isn't a project to be launched. There's people working on the website 24/7. And I think that's the whole mindset that needs to shift, is properly adopting, you know, you hear it called agile marketing, which was kind of stolen from IT, but basically it's working on these short sprints of continuous improvement based on data. And that's what it takes for businesses, I think, to really compete in the space.
You know, I was thinking just suddenly, you know, like the thing that popped into my mind was, why is Ryan Reynolds so damn good at marketing? You know, that was the only thing that just like, it's like, because it is clear that, you know, your point about a digital native approach, about being able to actually approach it with a very different, you know, like, and it's also the trickle down approach, right? Let's produce the Super Bowl spot and then give you some scraps for your TikTok, as opposed to, why not create you know, put it all into TikTok, and and then give the longer versions to the 30s. It doesn't work the other way around. And then you have someone like Ryan Reynolds, who just produces great content as well. But why is he so damn good at it?
Well, first of all, isn't he Canadian?
I mean, you know, I have heard a rumor that all I knew is that Canadians are nice people. But what are you saying? That they're smart as well? It's like the double threat. Give me one more attribute and it will be that. And they're great at
he's also extremely good looking, right? So there you have it.
So just hold a note to self: be Canadian and be good looking. Well, look, I'm 1 out of 2. What else? What else you got? Yeah, I'm Canadian. No, I'm not.
I think there's some people, kind of, you said this at the beginning, there's some people who inherently understand the medium and people and how to communicate with them, right? So when you look at a lot of people who happen to be successful, they just kind of got it and they were successful. So I was speaking last week to a group of personal injury lawyers. And believe it or not, there's a super famous personal injury TikToker. And this guy is real clever. He basically shows videos of car crashes and talks about whether you could sue the person. Smart idea, right? And he has all sorts of like really cool stuff. But it's not replicatable for other people, right? I mean, he gets it. He knows what people are interested in. He's got the right personality for it. He can pull it off. It's just like, not everyone could do what you do, even if you wrote down the playbook. Right? You could give me all the steps to creating a good podcast. It doesn't mean I can actually do it. There is this like personal energy that comes into all this stuff that connects with people. And so to me, that's what I think is like, why are certain people specifically successful? I think there's people who also just get it and understand people and understand what drives them and what funny looks like and what good looks like, and really nail these platforms.
So first of all, I agree. Although I'm gonna just play a slight devil's advocate with you, right? Which feeds beautifully into what you do and how you do it. So it's like a bit of a softball. So we're talking about like a nature nurture conversation. I believe that marketing, you either have it or you don't. I've always believed that. I believe you either get it or you don't. What I used to believe is that, I got my story, the story that I often tell is how the head of Unilever came to the University of Cape Town and basically said, hey, you don't have to have done marketing or be studying marketing to apply for a marketing position. Look at me, I'm the head of HR and I've got a zoology degree. And I was like, you arrogant, son of a bitch, how, I've studied the damn thing. And now you're telling me that like I'm on an equal playing field as anyone else. And I realized at the end of the day that he was absolutely right, but he was still an arrogant son of a bitch. But he was right. You either get it or you don't. Now, if you get it and you're studying it, then that's like, then power to you, and you'll probably be even better at it. So I guess the devil's advocate is, if that is true, and I believe it for the most part it is, then what role does teaching and education and learning play in terms of, to use your words, breaking the cycle?
You're frozen for a second on me. There we go.
am?
Yeah, now you're back. I'm good. So to me, here's the thing, right? When it comes to digital, I always like to tell people it's not rocket science, but there's a way to do it.
Right.
And knowing the way to do it is giving you this 10 times level of success over someone who doesn't know the way to do it. So I think, it's like starting a restaurant. There's someone who can have no idea about a restaurant and just come in and somehow get it and make the most amazing restaurant and make all the right decisions. Most of us can't do that. We do need the playbook, and then we add our brains, creative energy, strategic thinking into that playbook to drive ultimate success. And I think that's how this stuff really works together. So it's getting that foundational knowledge and then adding into that the application, the creativity, the understanding in order to get results. But, knowledge is like the very, very, very tiny first step. I did a workshop a while ago with a big company, and I showed them a bunch of stats on mobile, right? Like mobile is over 50% of screen time. And I was like, how many people didn't know this stuff? No one puts up their hand. You all know this, right? Correct. Great. How many of you have ever evaluated an email you sent out on your mobile phone? 0%. So to me, it's this combination of knowledge, application, strategic thinking, and creativity. And part of this has a playbook, and part of it we got to use our brains for. Some people can stumble into it, but that's not replicatable for the vast majority of us, including me.
I think that's a fantastic response, because in a way, it's almost like the idea of sheet music. This is the song, these are the notes, this is how the song is meant to be sung, these are the words. And once you have mastered that, and once you know that, then you can mix it and remix it and mash it up and make it your own and riff on it and apply your own unique approach and or, creative spin on it. And I think that's how the two kind of come together nicely.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're right.
So we still have a lot to learn, but now I could not get out of, I'm busy looking at your calls to action. And I was like, wait a second, why is she not providing a Twitter account? And I did an @Krista Neher and I didn't find anything. So I guess instead of like,
my Twitter account got hacked 2 years ago and I could never get it back. And I decided also, who cares about Twitter anyways? But if you know someone, I've submitted over 100 support tickets. It's literally the worst platform.
Why don't you just ask me? I'll give it back to you. Oh no. So you've decided you don't, and you were, I assume, Krista, you were your first name, last name, right?
I am everywhere. So I don't know. If they can't be bothered to service me, I'm like, then.
So you didn't want to be like a
what's
Krista
my interest
N
in
or a Krista underscore or anything. You were like, no, I am.
No, look, here's the thing. I joined Twitter in 2006, right when it came out. I had over 100,000 followers, and this company cannot be bothered to provide a minimal level of support. I'm like, what do I want to spend my energy there for then?
And oh, by the way, you also happen to have written the book on the subject, and you happen to teach it as well. And so, like, you're kind of you're kind of a big deal.
I submitted over 100 tickets, and I reached out to 10 people I knew who worked there. And, you know, people talk about Facebook. Look, at least Facebook has some paths to like human interaction. So Facebook's a client too, in full disclosure. But yeah, I was just like, after all this frustration, I just figured vote with my energy.
Well, I think that comes back to finally, you know, we'll just touch on your book, Launch Yourself, because in many respects as well, you are at Krista Neher. You are, that is your brand. Like, I am Jaffe Juice as well. And you're kind of saying, look, this takes me now away from an off brand now. And why must I fight to be someone else when ultimately this is who I am? I would love to just get your take on the whole concept of personal brands, personal branding. Now we're in a Web3 environment where we're taking on avatars and NFTs as our persona or as our PFP. What does personal branding look like now in 2022 on top of the last 2.5 years of this hybrid existence?
I mean, I don't think it looks different. I think, truth be told, with most of marketing, where we like to think we're reinventing the wheel, it's just the same stuff in a different format on a different channel. To me, what I look at is the principles of creating a powerful personal brand. It's the same principles of creating that the biggest brands in the world use, right? And so the way that I think about personal branding is define, design, deliver. Define what your brand is all about. So what do you want to be known for? What do you want someone to take away? Design it in a powerful way, and then deliver it consistently and loudly online to build that recognition. So the 4 elements that I focus on in terms of designing a good brand, I call it MADE to remember it, but it's memorable. You know, people think that memorability is like either you're memorable or you're not. But like, how am I memorable? I look exactly the freaking same everywhere I show up professionally. I literally, my hair is up. I wear similar clothes. I really make a point to look similar to build that consistency and memorability. There's certain things you can also do. You know, you see certain people in our industry, you know, Scott Monty wears his bow ties. There's other things like that where that consistency and these visual cues lead to memorability. The second is be authentic. People don't want to connect to a robot. They want to connect to an authentic, real human being that resonates with them. The third one is differentiated. So, you know, there's a lot of people doing a lot of similar things, but what is it that you do that's different or better or makes you stand out? And most people can't articulate that. So I mentioned I was speaking to these lawyers earlier in the week. They do tons of TV advertising, all this stuff, but what is different about working with you versus the 10 other people that are advertising? Right. And a lot of people for their own brands can't articulate really their differentiation. And then the last one is educated or credible. What are your proof points so someone buys into your brand and actually believes that you're legitimate? And so really it's bringing those things across consistently. And one of the moments I had personally that got me thinking about this was I started my career at Procter & Gamble, and I left and I was at a conference, and people would be like, oh, what do you do? And I would just be like, oh, I do social media. And no one was very interested in me. And I knew that. I'm like, people aren't interested in me. You know, you can tell, like, they don't remember me. They're not interested in talking to me. What am I doing wrong? That's what I'm
They're like
thinking.
looking over you.
Yeah,
Like,
just no one's interested. And a friend of mine introduces me to his friends, right? And he's like, oh, this is Krista. She's a pioneer in social media. She's speaking at this event, former Procter & Gamble executive. And suddenly everyone's interested in me. And I was thinking, you know, I can't carry this guy around to make me show up properly. So how do I start doing this myself, both online and offline? So when I show up, it's not about being aggressive or bragging, but I'm, you know, asserting myself a little bit and my accomplishments so that I am taken seriously. And so that was what really inspired me about sort of codifying some of the stuff in the book.
I just love that. And people that are still watching now, you got the gems right at the end. Made in not made in America, but made in Canada. Krista Neher was made in Canada, refined in Holland, in the Netherlands, and now she's back on U.S. soil. Thank God. I have this now image in my mind of you carrying this person around on you going, she's a pioneer. It's like a parrot, she's a pioneer. But it's true. One of the things that happened even on the show, Krista, was that everyone would end the show and say, I had so much fun. And I was like, no, it's not fun. This is a talk show. This is serious. And I was like, wait a second. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck and the duck says it's fun, then it's fun. And so maybe you can deliver business, create a business talk show that's fun. Surprise, surprise, not bore people, into watching an hour filled with unbelievable insights like you just delivered. And so, that's what happened.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think,
but you have fun.
Look at your brand. I had fun. And I think even you look at your brand, though, you're making a deliberate choice to be a little different than what people might expect from someone like you based on your resume, right? You have your bad word beeper outer thing. You do your little sounds, right? It's a deliberate choice about how you want to show up, and it's consistent in everything that you do.
Everything is deliberate and everything is spontaneous. And once it's spontaneous, it becomes deliberate. That's the thing. Sometimes by being spontaneous, if it works, you're like, hey, let's do that again. Like, for example, even my shelves behind me, that is a deliberate choice. I started off with a green screen and suddenly I was like, let me just see, memorable, authentic, differentiated, and educated or credible. What am I, like a half out of 4 there, Krista? I'm working on it. Will you help me? Will you be my guide? Will you help me get 4 out of 4? Will I make it? Will I make it, Krista?
There you go. I don't know, right?
I don't know. But I will tell you one thing about Krista, and I have to say this. Your website really is quite spectacular. And I just went through it as well. I mean, it's just I just it's a weird thing to do, but I just the color coding and the countries, everything is there that should be there, right? Everything is there in terms of the calls to action and the chat, etc. But there was just something about it that said, that just oozed credibility. And I've seen so many speaker websites, and I just looked at this and I said, Krista, you make me want to be a better website.
Good. Well, here's the thing that I'll tell you is I've been very deliberate about my personal brand for like 10 years. And when I look back at a lot of my biggest opportunities, speaking clients, global clients, I was on CNN, 2 of my big book deals, I did a dummy book and a textbook. All of those opportunities came to me from people who found me on the internet. So it's worth investing in. And I think a lot of people who are successful on their own don't invest in these assets because they don't think they need them and they don't see the power of them. But you look at the people who nail this stuff, like Jay Baer is a perfect example of someone who nails this stuff. And I think, to me, it's such a simple investment that has made the biggest difference.
Guest number 404, the 404. If you ever wanted the 404, you now got it. Krista Neher, the CEO of Boot Camp Digital. Do not follow her on Twitter, or do, but if you do, try and get her account back. She'll give you, I don't know, free consultation, or whatever you want.
I'll give you whatever you want.
I mean, like right now, people are clambering to basically make sure that they get your Twitter account back. But until that happens, you can follow her on Instagram. You can connect with her on LinkedIn. Please go and buy digital marketing that actually works. There's a shock. And launch yourself, and of course, sign up for Boot Camp Digital and get your digital marketing training and certification, or just go to kristaneher.com. Maybe you'll see her at South by Southwest in 2023. Maybe you'll see me there too, and we can kick it with the other OGs, including, but not limited to, Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And I will be back on Thursday with this newcomer by the name of Tom Peters, who will be my guest. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.